10. The Big Bang Theory characters who need to return in Stuart's spinoff. When The Big Bang Theory wrapped up its 12-season run in 2019, it left behind one of the most memorable ensembles in sitcom history. But even with young Sheldon giving fans a prequel taste of the universe, there's one character whose story still feels ripe for a spinoff: Stuart Bloom. The socially awkward, perpetually unlucky comic book store owner became an unlikely fan favorite. His desperate attempts at finding love, his financial struggles, and his oddball charm made him one of the show's most underrated gems. A Stuart-centered spin-off could finally let him step out of the shadows of Leonard, Sheldon, and the gang, while still keeping ties to the larger Big Bang Theory universe. But Stuart's show can't exist in a vacuum. His charm came from bouncing off the quirky characters who wandered into his shop or his life. Here are 10 characters from the Big Bang Theory who absolutely need to make an appearance in Stuart's spinoff. 10. Howard Wolowitz. Howard was one of Stuart's earliest and most consistent customers, and their interactions were hilariously awkward. Howard often used Stuart as the butt of his jokes, but deep down there was a kind of camaraderie between them. A spinoff could expand on that dynamic now that Howard is a father and family man. Watching a more mature but still sarcastic Howard check in on Stuart could give the series both comedy and warmth. It would also be fun to see Howard's kids introduced to comic books through Stuart's shop. Imagine the irony of the once ladies' man engineer begrudgingly accepting that his children find Stuart cooler than him. That's a storyline ripe for comedy gold. 9. Denise. If there's one person who has to return, it's Denise, the fellow comic book store employee who eventually became Stuart's girlfriend. She brought Stuart out of his lonely rut and gave him the confidence he'd always lacked. Their chemistry was quirky but genuine, and fans loved watching Stuart finally find happiness in romance. In the spin-off, Denise could play an even larger role as co-owner of the comic book store or as Stuart's grounding partner in life. Whether they're navigating the difficulties of running a small business or dealing with geek culture drama, Denise is the perfect anchor for Stuart's show. 8. Raj Koothrappali. Raj and Stuart's friendship became one of the most delightful subplots in the later seasons of The Big Bang Theory. Their shared loneliness, awkwardness, and love of pop culture made them a lovable odd couple pairing. Raj often leaned on Stuart when his romantic life failed, and their dynamic felt like two misfits who found family in each other. In the spin-off, Raj could continue to be Stuart's partner in crime. Maybe Raj invests in the comic book store or ropes Stuart into one of his failed business ideas. Fans would definitely love to see Raj finally settle down while Stuart continues stumbling through life, offering a comedic contrast to their friendship. 7. Beverly Hofstadter. Leonard's mother, Beverly Hofstadter, was a clinical psychologist whose cold and analytical nature made every interaction hilariously uncomfortable. Stuart, with his fragile self-esteem, would be the perfect target for Beverly's clinical dissection. Having Beverly pop into the spin-off could create some brilliantly awkward comedy. Maybe she studies Stuart and his customers as part of a book project on socially maladjusted nerds. Or perhaps she takes a surprising liking to Stuart's straightforward loneliness, giving him the maternal validation he's been craving. Either way, Beverly's return would bring a sharp comedic edge. 6. Bert Kibler. The lovable geology professor Bert was another late addition who stole fans' hearts. His bumbling awkwardness and self-deprecating humor made him feel like Stuart's academic counterpart. A spin-off could pair these two underdogs together, with Bert frequently visiting the comic book shop to talk rocks and superheroes. Bert's tendency to overshare and Stuart's tendency to spiral into self-pity could create some of the funniest, saddest, and most endearing exchanges in the spin-off. Plus, Bert's giant rock collection could finally give Stuart's shop some unusual decor. 5. Leslie Winkle. Leslie Winkle was one of the earliest recurring characters who mysteriously disappeared as the show progressed. Known for her quick wit and sarcastic takedowns, especially of Sheldon, she could bring some much-needed sharpness to Stuart's world. A spin-off appearance could show her thriving in her career, but still swinging by the comic book shop. Maybe she and Stuart bond over their shared outsider status in the larger Big Bang Theory friend group. Her sarcasm paired with Stuart's gloom would be a perfect comedic cocktail. 4. Emily Sweeney. Raj's dermatologist ex-girlfriend, Emily, was one of the more intriguing recurring characters. Dark, edgy, and with a love for horror movies, she often clashed with Raj's more innocent personality. But that darkness might mesh surprisingly well with Stuart's awkward gloom. If Emily returned in the spin-off, she could become a regular customer, or even strike up an oddball friendship with Stuart and Denise. The show could explore how Stuart reacts to someone who's just as socially offbeat as he is, but in a much scarier way. Their conversations about creepy movies and comics would be comedy gold. 3. Barry Kripke. Every sitcom needs a wild card, and Barry Kripke is perfect for that role. The antagonistic, speech-impaired physicist was one of Sheldon's most persistent thorns. Bringing him into Stuart's spin-off would give the show a much-needed agent of chaos. Kripke could become a regular customer who constantly irritates Stuart with inappropriate comments or outrageous demands. He might even try to take over the comic book store or turn it into a physics hangout. His presence would guarantee unpredictability in every episode. 2. Amy Farrah Fowler. While Sheldon's wife Amy was a major part of the original show, she could serve a new purpose in Stuart's spin-off. Amy always had a soft spot for underdogs, and she often encouraged those around her to grow. Bringing her in as a customer or friend of Denise could create interesting dynamics. Amy could act as a mentor figure for Stuart in a weird, roundabout way. Maybe she encourages him to take more risks in life or analyze his own self-sabotaging behavior. Plus, Mayim Bialik's dry humor would contrast perfectly with Kevin Sussman's nervous charm. 1. Penny. Out of all the Big Bang Theory characters, Penny is the one who needs to appear in Stuart's spin-off the most. She had a unique bond with Stuart. He often nervously flirted with her, and though it never went anywhere, their interactions were awkwardly funny. Penny's return could give the spin-off a big nostalgic pull, but also add some heart. Now older, wiser, and possibly juggling family life, Penny could drop into the comic book store to check in on her old friend. Maybe she becomes a confidant to Denise, or even helps Stuart with his confidence issues. Penny's mix of warmth and sass would be a perfect fit. Why Stuart's spin-off works best with familiar faces. A Stuart spin-off can't just be about awkward silences and comic book jokes. It needs the layered relationships that made the Big Bang Theory work. By weaving and returning characters like Raj, Howard, Penny, and Denise, the show can strike the perfect balance between fresh storytelling and nostalgic connections. Stuart has always been the guy in the background, lurking in the shadows of the friend group. Giving him his own spotlight while bringing back the quirky cast that shaped his journey would make for a truly unique sitcom. It wouldn't just be about a man running a comic book store, it would be about finding belonging, one awkward encounter in background, lurking in the shadows of the friend group. Giving him his own spotlight while bringing back the quirky cast that shaped his journey would make for a truly unique sitcom. It wouldn't just be about a man running a comic,